Good evening, everyone. My name's Chris. I'm the Adult Programming Librarian at the Newburgh Free Library, and welcome again to Small Business Bootcamp. For those who haven't been here before, Small Business Bootcamp is a partnership between the City of Newburgh and the Small Business Administration, hosted by the Newburgh Free Library and taught by Miriam Bouchard with the Small Business Development Center. Tonight, we have a guest speaker for our presentation on the IRS and taxes. If anyone needs to view past presentations, all of these are being recorded and they are available on our website at thenewburghlibrary.org. I'm going to plug that link in the chat and I'm going to pass things over to Ellen for her part of the introduction.
Thank you, Chris, and welcome everyone to another one of our great small business workshops. I'm Ellen Fillo. I am Director of Community Development with the City of Newburgh. And as Chris had mentioned, we are so thankful to our partners in these workshops, City of Newburgh, along with a co-sponsorship agreement with the Small Business Administration, Miriam with the Small Business Development Center, and Chris with the Newburgh Free Library. We could not do it without all these wonderful partners. So with that, I'm going to pass this along to Sylvia or Miss Lily with Small Business Administration.
Well, I figured you would go to Miriam first because I want to introduce Brenda when she comes in. So Miriam, please take it over.
Good evening, everyone. If you are new to this series, we started back in the spring of 2021 with the idea to give you a platform where you could get educated on business matters and have a chance and ask your questions. And we had a series that concluded in June. We had 6 training events last spring, and this fall we have 4. And like Chris said, they're all recorded, so it's an incredible opportunity for you to have this. You can look at it whenever you want. So sometimes we invite guest speakers. Tonight we have a guest speaker, and she is an expert in IRS and taxes. Brenda is a little behind schedule tonight for good reasons, but she'll join us in a minute. And the Small Business Development Center is funded by the Small Business Administration. So the SBDC is funded by the SBA. It's a big alphabet soup here. And what we do, it's a federal program nationwide. Every state has its own, independent SBDC centers. In New York, there are 22 or 23 centers throughout New York State, and we are hosted by the SUNY network. And in the Mid-Hudson region, SBDC is your closest center. What this federal funding allows us is to provide professional, confidential, no-cost business counseling to new or existing businesses. So full-time advisors, I've been doing this for 20 years, and all over the state, we have newbies and veterans alike that have been doing this for a long time, can help you with any matters of your business, regardless of where you are in the business cycle, whether you're a startup or whether you're mature, whether you are looking for funding or marketing assistance or human resource assistance. We have a long list of specialists, over 200 advisors in New York alone, and many of those have specialties. So if your advisor doesn't know the answer, we have this beehive of 200 other advisors that we can pull knowledge from. And in addition, in New York, which is unique to New York, we advisors have access to business librarians for our clients who can do research. So if we have clients that need industry data that's very specific, where that's not available on the internet because these databases are too costly and neither you or I would be able to afford it, our librarians may have access and can come up with that data to make, to use that as an example, but they're full-time librarians, their specialty is business, and they can do research for you at no cost. So it's a whole long list of resources that we offer. We also have a database, it's called BidLinks. This is for those companies that want to do business with government, both local, state, federal. This is a database, and once your company profile is in it, you can start receiving bid requests. And that allows you to filter through those requests and decide if you want to reply to those requests for proposal, depending on, if you feel it's a good match. So it's a long list of resources. And tonight I pass the baton to Brenda, but first let's have Sylvia introduce her.
Thank you very much once again, as usual. Thank you very much, Miriam. And thank you, Ellen and Chris, for having us together. We're trying really hard to make things easier for everybody as they create their businesses and grow and expand, explore, and recover. So with no further ado, I would like to present to you Mrs. Brenda Stuart-Luke of the IRS. She has quite a few years of service, but let her tell you that she's one of the best people I know that runs the IRS. Mrs. Stuart-Luke, please. Unmute.
Thank you so much, Sylvia. Let me see. Okay, thank you everybody for inviting me here today to speak with you. I am so happy. And my name is Brenda Stuart-Luke. I have been with the Internal Revenue Service for 42 years. January will be 43. And different departments of the IRS. And Sylvia and I have done several presentations together in the past. And basically, well, it's so important to really inform people about what's going on. And actually, upstate New York is one of the areas we had to do a school district event on, which I'll go into it further, talking about that. So basically, my job is to reach out to the community. This is the business community, as well as the school districts, to inform people about some of the services and resources that IRS has. I do work with the SBDCs, that's lower level in the city, downstate. And I really enjoy working with them. I do have an ongoing relationship, I would say, with Clarence especially, but I do work along with Miriam, and I work along with Rosa and Figueroa. And now, I mean, I welcome working with you. So I'm looking forward. I was so excited when Sylvia invited me. So I look forward to sharing it with you. And I hope this is the beginning of long-lasting relationships. So basically, Sylvia, I'm sorry for being late. We wanted to share this information with you. Sylvia, if you can upload the PowerPoint that I'm going to talk about today, some of the things that really came out as effective as of January. Well, a lot of things now is basically getting ready for the filing season. And I would say one of the biggest things that I would say for anybody, whether they're a business or they're an individuals, that they should keep good records. Because I remember once, as I was a revenue officer in my many positions after my 42 years, almost 43 years with the IRS, it said, if it's not documented, it's not done. So you need documentation for everything that you do, particularly with the government, whether it's IRS or the SBA or any of the federal agencies, to make a proof. And that's for, we're talking business. But if you look at it, if we're talking even individuals in your own personal lives, if you have to show and make proof, you have to have records, because who's going to accept what you say? It becomes what you say versus what the other person said. But if you have the documentation, that is the proof. So that is the mindset that we say when you're starting a business, you need to have a beginning plan and the exit plan, but you need to keep a record of everything along the way. And that goes a lot with what happened during the beginning of the coronavirus as of last year. I mean, a lot of things came out as a result of the American Rescue Act, as well as we had COVID-19 going back from March. A lot of individuals received the economic impact payment. There was 3 economic impact payments that came out. They had to keep records to show that they had these payments, that they received them as individuals. Last year was the first time that individuals that were small business owners also was entitled to receiving that, went forward with actually getting unemployment. Again, you would have to keep records of when you got the unemployment. And this is also, we talked about the advanced child tax credit. The advanced child tax credit, which we, the IRS, is looking forward to you that work at the SPDCs, as well as the attendees. You can actually still help us to get this information out to the community that about the advanced child tax credit. The advanced child tax credit is the credit that everyone, if they had children that was under the age of 6 years old, the parent was entitled to the $300, and the children was in the, they had children under the age of 18, they were entitled to the $250 per month. December 15th will be the last of that payment because you receive half of that payment. The rest of that payment will be prepared when you actually go forward with preparing your 2021 tax return. But you needed to keep records to actually see how much did you receive. There was also the employment retention credit that was given for employers that kept their employees on staff during the beginning of the CARES Act. And these were credits, and it was like 50% that you would receive, you know, in advance of this information going out. So this, again, is credit that you would receive as an employer for maintaining employees on record. And again, we go back to keeping good records. But I'm going to go through some of the things that records that you should keep, the type of records that would verify that you actually had the information, that it was available, and how long you should keep it. Next slide. Okay, record keeping use. Why should we use record keeping? What is the purpose of record keeping? Well, record keeping helps you monitor the progress of your business activity. Also, it prepares financial statement, because if you apply for a loan, even from the SBA, you're going to have to submit financial statements to show how your business was on a daily basis. And it's important for you as the owner of this business to keep your own records. I mean, you might hire an accountant also to maintain the records, or a payroll, you know, provider. However, you're the owner, it's your business. So if anything goes wrong, it comes back to you. Okay, you want to use, it identifies receipt sources, it tracks deductible expenses, and also ultimately, of course, it prepares the tax return. So even though you may have someone preparing the tax return, but you need to know what they're putting down for them to explain it to you, why they're putting it on the tax return. Again, because when you find at the end of the filing season, or when they prepare your return, it's not them that's signing the return, it's you. So it's your business. So you want to keep us out of your business happily, because recognizing one way or the other, we're going to be in your business, whether voluntarily or involuntarily. But we're here to promote volunteer compliance and helping the IRS continue to stay your friend. We're your friend regardless, but we want to show you and help you follow the path so that you, when your returns are prepared, it is prepared to the utmost of your ability with the most important information available. Okay, so now we're going to talk about record keeping use. Income expenses, a record-keeping system, and it shows supporting business documentation. With this business documentation, it actually tracks what you buy. So again, we want to keep this ultimately in the back of our head. Income, expenses, record-keeping system, whatever record-keeping system that you can use. Now, you have people, young people that start their business, they use a notebook. I mean, how did I buy supplies, or where did I buy the supplies? How much did I spend? You can have a little notebook. I'm sure like maybe years ago, you might have known people, maybe our grandparents, they had businesses. They will pull out that notebook and tell you, this is what I bought today. This is what I bought. And if someone comes to ask them, believe me, they have the receipts. So that is one of the main focuses we want to say. You need the supporting business documents. Next slide. Supporting business documents. You might ask, well, what are you talking about? Well, if you purchase something from a store, and especially if it's wholesale, they're going to give you an invoice. You're going to have an invoice, a document of what you purchased. Receipts. You want to keep the receipts. How much did you pay for it? Well, you may give an estimate to the accountant, but in the event that you're audited by IRS, we're going to ask you, we will say on your return, this was put down. Well, what is the supporting documentations to back it up? If you do not have it, it's like it's not done. So you want to have the supporting receipts. Payroll. How do you pay the employees? How much did you pay them each quarter? So again, you need the supporting documentations to say, I had X amount of people on board and this is what I paid them. Sales. How much sales did you make at the end of the day? You don't want to estimate. We need to know how much you made. And if you have someone that's keeping your internal records, you want to make sure that at the end of the day, they tally. And believe me, the other important document is canceled checks. Canceled checks are really valuable to the IRS. I used to be the walk-in manager of the IRS downtown Brooklyn, New York. And we constantly would look at the back of the checks, which would tell us, first of all, how much it is, when was it paid, when did it come into the IRS? So the canceled checks tells you a lot of information. So that is valuable. And what part I would say also, take pictures of these receipts, because sometimes people actually keep the paper receipts. What we've seen with Hurricane Sandy and the various hurricanes that's existed, or even just in general, how long do you think a paper and ink document is going to last? If you look at that, you put it in your wallet, after a while it disappears. But it is very helpful if you make a copy with your phone. I mean, we really have smartphones. These smartphones does everything. I tell my son, I mean, I just got an iPhone, which I'm excited about, but I have to figure it out. But I did have I have a Samsung, and when I find out so much, I mean, this here cell phone does everything a computer does. I mean, so take a picture of that check. Of course, you want to make sure it is secured, but those receipts that you're buying, because later on, you're going to forget. So remember, you want to have electronic backup to what you're doing, or make sure you make a copy. So in the event when you prepare that return, you have paper documentation. Documentation, documentation, documentation. That is the key. Next slide. Establish a separate business account. I know everybody that's in business for themselves, they are not intermingling the monies. I would never think that. No, no, no. You want to make sure you have a separate bank account for your business and a separate bank account for yourself. The problem comes when you start borrowing. What happens if you pay it What happens if you do not pay it back? Because once you do it the first time and you see, oh, okay, this is easy, it can become a cycle that you actually go forward with doing. Also, you want to reconcile the accounts regularly. Did I get that check back? I printed it out, I paid it. You want to make sure you pay it when you get your statement. Retain deposit information and receipts. Again, we're going back to documentation. Use business account for all business transactions. Again, you're going to use that business account. So you're going to be smart and you're going to work with organizations such as the SPDCs to help everyone understand what type of bank account they can have, the purpose of the bank account. You're going to have that business plan where you're going to see that is a part of your plan in the beginning to establish an actual bank where you're going to have your business. You're not going to play in your own personal account. That is a no-no. We're going to say you merging and intermingling funds. So next slide. Gross receipts. Okay. Established, we said all this for all the transactions reconciling. Again, this is the gross receipts. Next slide. Cancel checks. You see how that came up again? Purchases. A canceled check shows that you purchased the item, it was bought, and it was paid for. Cash register tape receipts. How often do you see in a restaurant or different places, they have the register receipts at the end of the night? You see them, sometimes they may have them in the register. Sometimes you even see them on a little pole, but that register receipt is important to document what the work was for that day. How do you do that? Credit card sales receipts. That's important. All of this is to show that you made purchases. Why? Because at the end of the time period or the quarter to file the returns, you want to put this down. I bought these items for my business. These are the canceled checks. These are the receipts. These are the credit card sales slips to show, and this is my invoice. I bought it from this location. And this is why I'm putting these purchases on this return so that I can take that off as a deduction for my business. And you have the proof. So in the event that you're audited by the IRS, you're going to say, listen, I'm giving this to my accountant. And if you're audited by the IRS and IRS question some of the documents, you're going to say, but this is my backup. And this happened that day. So that is why it's important for you to keep these receipts. Next slide. Expenses. Okay. What word come up again? CC. Cancel checks. Okay. Cash registered tapes. Account statements. Okay. Well, that's one thing today with the computer. We're able to actually go back and, you keep an account. You want to make sure, again, whoever's keeping your books and records, make sure you reconcile the checks. Make sure, okay, there were expenses, but were they reconciled? Okay. Credit card sales receipts. You want to make sure you're going to go back and you're going to look to compare what you have as a receipt and what's outstanding. Petty cash slips for small cash payments. Now, that is important too in the operating of your business. Because if you're doing all this, this is now a business that you're looking to, not a hobby. A hobby could be something that you do when you want to do it. It's not actually where you're going to actually file a return and want to take away these deductions and these gains. This is your business. You want to make sure if somebody is borrowing this, that they're paying it back. So you might say, well, it doesn't make a difference. It's a petty cash. No. That is an expense. And that is something that you should be addressing. And whoever is responsible for it has the receipt to say at the end of the night, somebody borrowed money. But if you have no receipt to show where it came from and who borrowed it, How can you go back to reconcile the books? So it's an ongoing process. Next slide. Okay, we have a publication 463, which talks about travel, transportation, entertainment, and gift expenses. Okay. I'm taking this from the angle in the event that you were audited, okay? Because again, we talked about having that business plan from the very beginning and the exit plan. But in between that exit plan and the business plan, the beginning and the end, you need to maintain that business, okay? How many people have seen so many people start a beautiful business, and in the process, if they don't have the maintenance of that business, the business goes down. It's just like buying a house. Oh, the house is beautiful when you first buy it. However, if you don't maintain cutting the grass, cutting the lawn, paying your bills, the light, the gas, guess what's going to happen? It's no longer that beautiful house anymore. So that you want to look at your business as the same process. So talking about travel, proof of certain business expense. I went on a business trip. I stayed in a hotel. What proof do you have if you're putting this down on your tax return and you don't have the tickets? You were going to a certain event that dealt with your business. We suggest even taking pictures to show that you were actually there. And some people have taken pictures. They actually clip it to the travel expense to show what they can take off, what they cannot, and they were actually at that event. That include entertainment. We want to see how much it is for gifts and transportation. If you're using your car for a particular business and you're traveling, what is the mileage? You want to look at that mileage from the beginning of when you start your trip to when you reach your trip. And also if you're returning, the same amount. So it is important for you to keep that in place because again, certain things are not eligible to take down or to include on a travel expense. I mean, sometimes people will think they can pay for their brother, their sister, their father, all these things, but that may not be allowable. So you want to make yourself aware of publication 463 and make yourself aware of certain things that you should or should not take off your return. But there are certain things that you can, because you're showing it is this is part of your business to do this. And you know, even gifts, what type of gifts? So you want to make sure that it's reasonable. And the only way that you're going to show that actually the trip happened, it was reasonable, is by having the proof. And I encourage people to use a credit card, because if in the event, again, you lose a receipt, you can always notify the bank, notify the credit card company to show proof in the event that something comes up on that tax return that later on. But again, we're saying we're not mixing and mingle these accounts. That's why if you go on a trip and sometimes people blend in travel with play, you want to make sure of that specified time period that you're taking off, the hotel that's being included. That is all important that you need to know in the course of your business. Next slide. Document for access. We want to know, and you want to show, what are your assets? The purchase price, how much did you pay for it? Cost of improvement. I mean, you can say I spent all this amount of money to improve whatever, but what proof do you have that you spent it? Deductions taken for depreciation. How you use the asset. When and how you disposed of that asset, and what is the selling price? Expenses of the sale. So we need to see that, because again, we're not going to just take your word. And again, this is your business. So if you have an accountant, he may put down whatever the amount in order to figure that, hey, he's going to help you try to get big refund for you to continue to stay with it. Because a lot of times accountants or payroll companies, they don't put ads in the paper. A lot of times if you have someone and they help you to get a big refund, they showed you certain deductions, what do? You tell your friend, or you make a suggestion to your friend to actually utilize that person. Whereas in the long run, it may not help you, because if we actually ask for the documentation and you don't have it, what happened now? That accountant is gone. At the end of the presentation, I will talk also about some of these ghost preparers that show up. And so you want to make sure, again, you have documentations for you. This is your livelihood. This is your business. So it's important that you have all the documents to substantiate anything that's being put down or included on the tax return. Next slide. Employment records, okay? You want to have specific employment tax records, and you want to maintain them for at least 4 years. We have publication 15, we have publication 225, and you can always search under the topic of record keeping, because you never know. You want to be specific in what you put down, because an employee, a former employee, may come back to you, or they may apply for unemployment. I mean, they may need verification to show that they worked for you. So you want to maintain these records, and you want to also look and see, am I paying them properly? What is the amount that I should be paying them? You know, making sure that you are falling in line as the employer. So these, again, and if you need additional information, remember, IRS is a free resource. And we have several publications that's really in plain language that you can actually go forward with having. We have virtual workshops that we have where it talks about from the very beginning, what type of employee do you want? Also, it talks about what type of business structure that you have and what tax returns that's applicable that you should be filing. Next slide. Employment tax records. EIN, okay? You could go straight to irs.gov and it will tell you the process of getting that employee identification number, because you need that number for your business. Employment information, employment dates. You want to know what was the wages, okay? Tips reported and any type of deposits. If you're an employer, you should be making federal tax deposits every quarter, making sure it's paid on time. You want to maintain your employees' information. You want to make sure also that you keep it in a secure place also. And we talk about employee identification number. Realize that we're at a time where there's a lot of scams going on. Now, in the event that you have to throw out material or discard material at the end of the day, and it could be material that has your EIN number on it. Make sure if you're discarding paper, make sure you use a shredder. You might say, well, what are you talking about? Well, we have seen on many occasions, there are dumpster divers, they're called. At the end of the night, they can go into your garbage. And if you have your EIN number in there, they can create a whole new business. And they can go to irs.gov and they can start printing out W-2s. So now they have a new business with your EIN number and they have employees, because now they can issue W-2s. And especially if you have any of your employees' information there. So it becomes a problem. So it's important for you, if you are an employee, to maintain your information. In particular, if you're an employer, we have several data breach that actually has happened, not only to employers, but to the practitioners as well. And it's very sad to be informed by someone that your system was not secure enough and someone hacked it, and all of your employees' information has been hacked. Next slide. Small business record keeping systems. Again, business checkbooks. A lot of people have QuickBooks. Daily summary of cash receipts. That is important. This again is your business. You may have someone that you allocated to do this, but you want to keep a daily summary of cash receipts, what's come in, and where are you putting that information? Monthly summary of cash receipts, check disbursement journal, depreciation worksheet, employee compensation records. All these are things that you should maintain in your system. If not you, you can allocate someone that you trust to carry forward with this. But remember, again, this will affect your business because, again, these could be losses, these could be gains. Next slide. Record keeping timeframes. The length of you should keep a record. It depends on the type of file, expense or event, period of limitation that apply to income tax returns, records connected to property. You want to records that are no longer needed for tax purposes. Again, each return has a specific purpose and also a length of time. Next slide. Electronic records, same record keeping requirements. Electronic records are generally accepted by the IRS. You want to always check if you're being audited by the IRS, you want to make sure that they actually accept the electronic records rather than the paper documents. But in today's world where everything has become digital, electronic, you find more and more people are accepting digital documents, which could be submitted on a CD, DVD, flash drive, however, but maybe not through email due to security risks. We say electronic records save time. I mean, we're supposed to be living in a paperless society, but if you have all these papers with all these records, but I do encourage you, please put your information electronically. Again, having worked through Hurricane Sandy and saw how some of these businesses lost records because, a flood could happen, or it could be any type of mishap, a fire. So if you have this digitally done, this will prevent in the future things from getting lost. And that way rather than just looking through paper, all you have to go is to print the documentation up. Next slide. Again, these are certain publications that we have. Publication 583 on starting a business and keeping records. Publication 463 on travel, entertainment, gifts, and car expenses. Publication 15, Circular E, this is Employer's Tax Guide. And also, this is a Farmer's Tax Guide. Working in Stakeholder Liaison, even previously, we participated and coordinated with some accountants, some information on Farmer's Tax Guide. And there's a lot of individuals that are working with the USDA, also on trying to start business and also finding out what type of incentives they are using. But it's still the same thing about keeping good records. Next slide. Business expenses, net operating losses. And one publication that we really highlight is publication 594, which is the IRS Collection Process. Because a lot of people, when they receive the letter from the IRS, whether it's business or individual, they hesitate. If I get a letter from the IRS, I hesitate. And I say, oh my God, I got a letter from the IRS. What happened? But one of the things that I say to you, if you get a letter, open the letter. It could be a refund. You never know. But if you are in the process of working with the IRS, there is a process and you have a taxpayer bill of rights. You have the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and publication 594 talks about the IRS collection process. What is the process? I mean, they contact you and they give you a time frame to get back to them with certain information. Please get back to them within that time frame. If you're not able to accomplish what they need in that time frame, ask them for extended time. They're there, particularly during this COVID time, to work with you, to work with the businesses, to work with the individuals. The problem comes when you don't respond. When you don't respond, it makes people feel like, okay, are they ignoring me? Like, what's going on here? And they're most of the time, they're there to help you. Because understanding we've all at certain times may fall and there's issues. But we want to help you to work through it. And that way, once you work through it, you might say, oh, I didn't know it was that easy. I mean, if a person owes the IRS, you can actually go on irs.gov and you can organize a payment plan where you're not even meeting with someone. You can actually do it online. The main thing is you want to maintain and look forward to whatever the calendar dates. So as an example, because of Hurricane Ida, for people or areas that was affected during hurricane, the filing season was extended to January 3rd for certain counties. Now, whether, I mean, this would have been returns or the extensions that was during the time period that was required by October 15th. Now, even though the extensions were put in for October 15th from the May date, that only extended your time to file. It did not extend your time to pay. So we want to be aware of what the extension is for. And certain returns was extended due to Hurricane Ida. So this is information that we wanted to make sure that you're aware of. I mean, during the filing season, I mean, and last year, even certain parts this year, there was no collection activity on accounts where people owed money. At some point in time, even with the economic impact payment, a lot of people, I mean, right here in New York, because I'm responsible for New York, there's certain people that still have not received the economic impact payment. A lot of them didn't want to come forward because that they thought, especially with the CARES Act, that, you know, if they owed money, they were going to take that money and apply it to their liability, whereas that was the case. So it's important for you to keep up with the rules and regulations if you have a business, because again, this is your business. Next slide. I messed up on my email. I was rushing through, but it's Brenda Stuart-Luke, L-U-K-E. But that is my email address, Brenda E. Stuart-Luke, the number 4 at irs.gov. And that is my telephone number, which is area code 212-436-1027. I know I like to apologize for the fact that I know a lot of people are trying to get through to the IRS, especially I've heard, you know, people, they applied with the PPP, certain loans that they had from SBA, they needed a transcript. You know, all that is important. Please, you know, continue to look forward to trying to work with the IRS. You can set up an account online in which you can obtain a transcript. I know that it's been very hard to get through to the IRS. A lot of the offices were closed because there are people that typically might have processed the payments, the tax returns. They were typically working in the office. Those of us that do outreach, we kind of was used to actually doing, you know, outreach. So I know a lot of people have really, they've complained and made all kinds of statements, but we're working on it. We're trying to get better. And my goal as the lead for New York is we like to hear from you. How can we help you? What are you hearing? What are you trending? How we can make a better transition so that we can better serve you in the business world and make it easier. But I'd like to thank you all for the time. And if you have any questions, I'm available. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Brenda. In fact, if anyone has any questions, I think you could put them in the chat. I will read them to Brenda. Brenda can answer your questions right now if you have any.
Or you can unmute if you feel comfortable talking.
Or you can unmute. Somebody says, thank you for the class. Yes, this was very informative.
I do have a question, Brenda. With the COVID and with the CARES Act, with the PPP and the Restaurant Revitalization Fund, how does that affect your taxes? Because these are grants that became grants. I'm sorry.
I know that some of them became grants and some of them IRS worked with SBA, where I know a lot of it, the loans and all became forgivable. You know, and IRS for the first time, especially doing the CARES Act and going with the rescue, particularly the Rescue Act. This was the first time with the Rescue Act that IRS actually extended. It was a short turnaround time for people that was undocumented. If they had an I-10 and they didn't necessarily have to have a social, if they had an I-10, they could also apply to receive assistance from the IRS and SBA. I think they were able to apply for the PPP loan. And so there have been, people have reached for forgiveness, and IRS has printed up the information, and the Department of Treasury has worked with SBA in actually forgiving some of the loans that people applied for, and it turned to a grant, and we supplied the information. And one of the other things I just wanted to share, even with the advanced child tax credit, that has been our main focus. That has been my bread and butter for the last couple of months. In the past, with the child tax credit, advanced child tax credit, people that were undocumented or that did not have a social was not eligible for the advanced child tax credit. But with the Rescue Act, what that brought about, if someone had an I-10 and they had, the I-10 is an individual taxpayer identification number for individuals that's not eligible for a social, but had that number, and they had children that was born here in the United States, they could claim their children on their tax return, or they were eligible to get the economic impact payment. So this is information that we wanted to share, and they were eligible to get also this child tax credit that's out there now, with December being the last payment for the advanced credit.
Excellent. And just to clarify a little bit for those starting businesses, they have to start making quarterly payments, or how does that work?
For those that are starting, it depends on their business structure. You have a lot of individuals that are sole proprietors, and you have a lot of individuals that, of course, then they would file a Schedule C. I mean, they would have to make these quarterly payments, and the payments start in January. And it tells you, if you go to our website, or I can send some information which would tell them when they should make the payments all the way to the end of the year. That's estimated payments. But you find that a lot of individuals now, I have found in doing these presentations, more so than before, even though people were out of work, you find more and more people were using their creativity to establish businesses. And they were sole proprietors, and they were keeping Schedule Cs. That is another that's another return that you would actually attach to your personal return. But what they did was making sure they kept all the receipts. If you look, I mean, we're downstate. I guess we get the same channels, but you find that one of the things that we saw was that more and more people are doing is food preparation. So what they're doing, they're making sure all the documents they would keep about the receipts of people, things that they bought. But yes, they would have to make their quarterly payments. They would want to look and see how much, keeping copies of their receipts. You find that more and more people are becoming LLC, so that it's limited liability. And we have all this information on our virtual workshops on making people aware of what is the difference between an LLC? What is the difference between a limited liability? Why, why become a corporation? And you find that more and more people are selling things on the internet. They feel that the IRS or the government is not aware that they're selling. All this is important for you to sustain your business. The major portion of that is making sure you keep receipts. We have a calendar that's on irs.gov that's virtual that I can forward to you to forward out, telling you when you should make these quarterly payments. If you have 941s with employees, when is it due? Now our biggest, I would say one of the topics that we are talking about, filing season is coming in January. So everybody should be getting ready right now. Getting ready for the filing season, getting your paper documents ready. You don't want to wait till January to get it ready. You want to do it now. Should I make a checkup? Did they take out enough withholdings? We have a withholding calculator. So in the event that you have to make another payment, to say, this is the payment that we need to play catch up. So all this information is available. Okay, now I was a sole proprietor. Okay, I stayed in business. I'm going to file a Schedule C. What about all those receipts that you done spent now? Take a little box or either use QuickBooks, whatever way you want to do this to make sure that it's accurate in what you're doing. But to me, that is so important for you in starting your business. If you're starting your business right now, you should be working with the SBDC and your own self to document every single step that you're doing, because later on, that is going to make a difference. All those things that you did from the beginning to start your business.
Thank you so much, Brenda. This is such important information. A lot of people who start their business, they don't think long-term. They don't think that they're going to be at some point audited, and then, the auditors can go back, 7 years?
Yeah,
and that for 7 years, everything has to be in order, or at least 7 years. I mean, my accountant told me they can go back as far as they want, but we want to keep, 7 to 10 years of good record keeping. And it's basically, if it went through your bank account, you need a paper trail or, a digital receipt. That's basically the bottom line.
And I wanted to suggest, some of it is very simple. It's hard to get yourself into the habit of doing it. You have it, clip it, to it, put it in some kind of location or, some type of attachment so you have a record. But a lot of people that have been audited, what they've said to me, they look at the fact, think that every year they may be audited, because it could be, if you're audited the first year, it's a possibility you could be audited the next year to make sure that you're in line. But the audit really kind of like makes you see a snapshot of what your business is about. So you don't want to just like jump and crawl, or a lot of times people I know, I used to be a revenue officer, and a lot of times people would say, they have losses every year. And then they go like now working with SBA, and I'm looking and you hear people say, like, was this really a business? Because how do you show us a business if it's a loss every year? How now you're asking for funds? How do you get funds if it's been a hobby and you didn't gain anything? So all these things are really important for you that's starting a business to realize that there's so much material out there that's free. But one of the things IRS has been talking about too is equity and diversity. And if you feel that we have slighted you, you feel that we're not fair, we have the taxpayer advocate. The taxpayer advocate is a person that if you tried everything to get a resolution from the IRS, you can approach the taxpayer advocate. And the taxpayer advocate is an organization within the IRS. They will advocate for you. So, but these are the things that we have, and we're free, and we do presentations. And my goal now is trying to reach the schools upstate New York to try to reach out to the parents, because we had a list, and it was, oh my God, all the way up to Buffalo, of certain schools where there's money that's waiting for the parents and waiting for some of these small businesses, and maybe they're afraid. And we have listening sessions to try to figure out what is the best way, because evidently people are not going to go to our website, but people will come to you. People will go to the TV, local TV. So if any of you have any ideas, please let me know. Any of you want to work with me in getting this information out to the public, also please let me know. I welcome all help.
We have a question.
Yeah, we have a question, Brenda. So
Great.
yes, so this person asks, my new engineering business is not expected to get any payments from the customers for at least 5 to 6 months because it's project-based. I do not pay anything to IRS quarterly till I start getting paid for my services, correct?
Correct. But you want to keep a record. You want to keep a record of everything right now, of what you're doing, to show that it's not been a hobby, that this has been a business. So I would suggest that. And if any of you want to put any, like if you don't want to, you know, ask me the question, or you can send it to me directly. That way you have my email. That way I can respond to you, because I may not know the answer to all the questions, but please feel free to write me.
So I guess the question I'm asking to you is for accounts payable. So and you don't do estimate of income on accounts payable? Is that what it is? You
No.
just, okay, so it's only on the estimate of, well, basically it's an estimate of, well, my understanding, and I could be correct, I could be wrong, but my understanding is that you have your accountant basically ask you, what is your estimated income for the year? And you'll say
Right.
it's 50,000 or 200,000 or whatever. And this account will say, well, you need to prepay this amount every quarter, and they'll give you the vouchers for that.
Vouchers, right.
And if you underpaid, and you'll have to pay more, and if you overpaid, you'll get a refund.
Get back a refund, right.
So basically it's estimated on your projected income for the year, which is of course arbitrary. What you think in December for the coming year could be very different in June. So if you are way above or way less than what you thought, you can go back to your accountant and say, listen, I thought I'd do 100 and I'm at 200. So then they'll tell you how to adjust the
Right.
prepayments with your vouchers, correct?
Yes, because we're going to base it, your estimate is going to be based on, if nothing major changed, on how it was last year about that same time. It's better to overpay if you can, if you do, because you're going to get a refund. But if you don't, of course, it might be a penalty in the event that you underpaid. So I would say at the beginning of the year, you want to estimate, like what you said, you know, basically what's the possibility. That's why even with, I'm just using the returns, you know, with the CARES Act, basically with individuals, why some of them got the economic impact payment based on whatever they might have made their income was for that particular year, because every year is different. And a lot of times you find maybe in 2020, people's income was a lot less than it was in 2021. And based on their income is how they made their estimated payments. But you're right, what you said. And you want to listen to the accountant, but again, a lot of them are not there to educate you. They want you to keep coming back to them.
Yeah.
So it's important to realize you want to get a good accountant that's going to explain to you what is this for, because there are a lot of accountants that show up January 1st and after April 15, they're gone. Now, if you're audited by the IRS, they're not going to be there with you to represent what they put down. A lot of accountants will also say, this document was self-prepared. They don't want to sign it. So you have a lot of ghost preparers or preparers that do not want to accept the responsibility of what they put on your return. They will put it down and they don't have any proof, because they'll tell you, oh, you did this, you did that. But believe me, at the end of the day, it's going to be you, not them. So I would say anything that accountant asks you, you try to be as specific as possible based on what you know. And if you don't understand it, ask them to explain it to you. Because at the end of the day, when they contact him, you know, if there's a power of attorney on file, that, of course, with the power of attorney, it has to address each year specifically. So once he asks you for the power of attorney, make sure that you list the year that you want him to address. Because he's going to blame it on you. Well, that's what they told me.
Mhm.
And you also want to make sure if he's going to take care of your books and records, or he's filing your returns, make sure it's filed. Ask him, did you mail it? Or did you send it out? Because there's been many times where they take that envelope and they tell you they're going to mail it. It don't get mailed. And guess who gets the late penalty? You do. So I just say that business is your business. And you want to look at it not as a hobby, because those penalties and interest continue to accumulate every day. So you want to take ownership of that. And that would include also making the estimated tax payments, making sure the federal tax deposits are paid. And I will send the calendar to you so that if, when the people are establishing their business, they're aware of those due dates the same way as the accountant, because that's what they use.
Wow. I had a question for you, because a lot of times SBA requests information from borrowers or clients, as we say. They send us a JPEG or a JPG or something NPNG, and when they go to enlarge it to get a look at it, it distorts. Does the IRS prefer a PDF to a JPEG?
Well,
If we receive twice?
Well, I guess this is the first time I've heard that, but I would think that a PDF would be easier, where it can't get as distorted as the other document.
Okay.
You can't change it, because a lot of times, people go in, they want to change it, they start manipulating, and things are not that clear, it's not lined up, whereas a PDF it's easier. I mean, it stayed put basically, from what you're actually saving.
I had another question, but somebody on the chat has a question, Miriam.
So the question is, for clarification on the term accountant, does that CPA, tax preparers, or any individual preparing and filing your tax return? Is that what
Does
that
that
means?
Okay, yeah.
You want to know, so basically the question is, what is the difference between a preparer and a CPA?
Right. And an individual preparing and filing your tax returns.
Okay, first of all, a tax preparer is not licensed. Okay, so you can go, anyone that prepares a return, they're not required to have a license. They're preparing your returns. They have their software and they're preparing their returns, and they get what's called a practitioner identified number. They get a P10 from us and they prepare returns. Now, that individual cannot represent you unless they take a 15 additional, I would say, continuing education credits. You have a lot of tax preparers that do not keep up with the tax law. But if this individual say to you, and you would want to ask them, if you prepare my return, can you represent me before IRS? I look at preparers and CPAs like doctors. Now, would you go to a doctor or a person that says they're a doctor and they don't have a license? So a certified public accountant, he has a tax preparer perhaps on staff because he's a certified public accountant. He has to keep up with the tax laws because of ethics. They all should, but it's mandatory for them to have ethics training. So they're not going to play with losing their license because of you.
Oh,
So
hell.
they're going to keep up with doing things that are ethical. So it is good to have a CPA to tell you what's right and wrong. I'm not saying they won't tell you wrong, because again, a lot of them may again want you to keep coming back and forth to keep the money, but because of ethics reasons, that is the reason why they would tell you the right thing, that maybe you shouldn't be doing this. This doesn't look right. And that's basically what the difference is. One can represent you. If you are a business and you're giving this person information, if something is wrong, wouldn't you want them to represent you to say why they did it? These are just things to think about. But it's, but it's different phases of your business, I see the question, what about an enrolled agent? And an enrolled agent also can represent people too before the IRS. They can represent people, they can represent them, depends. It could be in collections, it could be represent people in examination. So if they say they're an enrolled agent, again, they're still withheld to the standards of a CPA because they have to take ethics training. And that is really, really, really important. You want someone that's, if they tell you something wrong, they're going to be held accountable. I don't know if that was helpful, but that is the major difference. And for IRS for New York, I am the lead for the limited English proficient or the multicultural group. So if you in your area too have people that English is not their second language, part of my job is to help them to understand what the laws are in having a business in the United States. And we like to host events also to help people to understand that there are rules and we want them to have it simple. And if you go to irs.gov, there's a click down menu that talks about the 5 languages that we have, 6 actually now, but we have material that's been written in the last 20 languages, particularly during the coronavirus or, the CARES Act. So we like to host events. We want to host events. And if you're willing to have events, or if you have people that multilingual in your area, please feel free that maybe we can even have a small grouping to let them know we do care, but we want them to understand what the rules are so they don't get in any trouble. So.
Wow, thank you so much, Brenda. That was amazing. And we're going to be coming back with Brenda.
I have a little anecdote. When I was 20, I have a little anecdote. When I was 20, I started my first business. My dad was a serial entrepreneur. So I went to him and I said, what's the one thing you recommend I do? And he said, get a great accountant. That was this piece of advice. And I have to say, I had like a dozen different businesses, and that was always like, okay, who's my accountant? Because they're the people that can translate basically the code law into words that you'll understand. They do all the work for you, so you don't have to. It's,
Right.
do what you do best, delegate the rest. That's also my favorite line. So if you're doing great at your trade and you're running your business, get a specialist to help you with your taxes.
Yes, I agree, because it's worth it in the long run. I mean, again, that ghost preparer is going to tell you anything. And then he's gone. You may not even have an address. So, you want to have someone that's going to stand by the laws, learn the laws, learn what's good for you. And they're able to come up with a plan, and they're going to be held accountable, because again, why would he lose his license? Because of you. Whereas I'm not saying nothing bad about the tax preparer, but unless they take those, because there's options that they can actually do where they can take these ethical courses. They can take this where they can actually represent people. So this again is something that people can do, and they can learn how to do returns. I mean, I don't know how many of you are familiar with VITA. Have any of you heard of volunteer income tax assistance? And volunteer income tax assistance is something that IRS offer in training, where some organizations actually offer free return prep. And a lot of people learn how to do that. and later on they spring forward and go out into their own business. These are things that people do. But in general, I agree with you. You want somebody that's licensed to help you start and keep your business, because you don't want to just start it. You want to keep it until you're ready to get rid of it, or you know when to step away from the business.
Excellent.
Thank you.
So we were planning to do some stuff in Spanish, and I know Brenda can handle that too. I'm very, very proud of her. And we've been good friends as well as colleagues for many, many years. And I plan to bring her into quite a few of my presentations and workshops, seminars. And when we get back into doing things in person, it's going to be even more fun.
Thank you so much, Brenda, for this great presentation. Very down to earth, straight to the point, very necessary. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And any feedback that you may have, please send it to me. That way we can improve, and that way we can think of ways, because we're down here in the city, and let me tell you, the IRS is really interested in you guys up there. And it's very difficult because we don't have anybody. We had somebody in Albany, we had somebody in Buffalo, but now it's me and my coworkers, and we haven't been able to reach all because we can't do any, face to face. So having this event, everybody was so excited that I was doing this with you guys. They're like, what they said. I'm getting texts now. And, so I any kind of work, anything that you may see that we can help in, please let us know.
Which reminds me that everyone's going to get an email with the slides, the slide deck, and the record of this presentation. But most importantly, you will also have a survey. It's literally like 3-4 questions, but super important that you take a minute to answer those. Even if you are listening to the recording, you can, go back to that document and fill your comments, because that's how we know if what you need, what you like, what you didn't like, what is it you'd like to hear about and learn about.
And thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, Brenda, this was great. This is Ellen with the City of Newburgh. It was just really wonderful. And we're all hoping that maybe someday we can even do these in person again, which would be wonderful. Maybe you could do a field trip up here with Miss Lily.
Yes, she will. You know we got teamwork happening here.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
All right, everyone, have a great evening. And in 2 weeks, our next session is about what is your why? Why do you do business? How to define your mission and vision, that I will be presenting. So on December 2nd at 6 o'clock, and you'll also be sent the link to register for that if you're interested.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, ladies.
Bye,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, Ellen. Have a great night.
Thank you
Go
so
get
much.
something to eat
Okay,
now.
good night.
Good night. Bye-bye.